Hello, I'm Sarah from Truth, Lies, Betrayal. Welcome to Horror After Dark. Turn down the lights, keep an open mind, and prepare for tonight's nightmare. Let's begin.
I moved into the apartment because it was cheap. That should have been the first warning. Not suspiciously cheap, just cheap enough that I stopped asking questions. Third floor, narrow hallway, beige walls, a window facing another building so close I could almost touch it. The landlord barely spoke during the showing. He handed me the keys and only said, "Storage room stays locked." I laughed and asked if there was treasure inside. He stared at me for a second too long, then said, "There isn't a storage room." I thought he was joking. The first week was normal. Work, dinner, sleep. Until one night, I woke up at exactly 2:17 a.m. No reason, no sound, just suddenly awake. I looked toward my bedroom door. Something felt wrong. My apartment was small enough to memorize after one day. Bedroom, tiny kitchen, bathroom, living room. But across the hallway, there was another door, flat white, no handle. I sat upright. I stared at it for almost a minute. I told myself I was tired, but I knew that door had never been there. I turned on my phone flashlight. The hallway looked normal again. No door. I laughed nervously and went back to sleep. The next night, 2:17 a.m., I woke up again. The door was back. Same place. Same blank white paint. Only this time, it had a brass handle. I stood there for several minutes. I remember thinking, if I open it and there's a wall behind it, I'll feel stupid. If I don't open it, I'll never stop thinking about it. So I opened it. Inside was a room. Empty. Gray carpet. Yellow light. No windows. Maybe 8 feet wide. Perfect square. Nothing inside. I checked the walls. Solid. I checked for another exit. Nothing. I walked back into my apartment. Closed the door. Opened it again. Hallway. No room. The door was gone. I didn't sleep. The next day I measured my apartment. Every wall. Every angle. I even checked the building layout online. There was no physical space where that room could exist. That night I stayed awake. 2:16. Nothing. 2:17. The lights flickered, and the door appeared. I opened it immediately. The room looked identical, except there was now a chair in the center, facing the wall. I didn't go inside. I closed the door, but before it shut, I noticed something scratched into the paint. Tiny letters. "Sit down." I locked myself in my bedroom. At 3 a.m., I heard footsteps. Slow. Measured. Crossing my apartment. Stopping outside my door. No knocking. Just waiting. Then walking away. Morning came. I searched every room. Nothing. Except my bedroom chair was missing. That evening I called the landlord. I asked if anyone had keys. Long silence. Then he asked, "Did you open it?" I hung up. I packed a bag. I wasn't staying another night. But around midnight, I realized something. The front door wouldn't open. Not stuck. Just, it opened into my hallway. My own hallway. Again. And again. Every exit led back inside. Then, 2:17. The white door appeared. Only now, it was open. The chair inside was occupied. A man, facing away. Same height as me. Same clothes. Same haircut. He slowly stood, turned around. It was me, except older. Exhausted. Eyes bloodshot. Like he hadn't slept in years. He looked relieved. Then he said, "You finally came back." I froze. He looked at me and smiled. Not happily. Like someone seeing their replacement. Then he stepped past me, into my apartment, and said quietly, "Don't stay too long. You start forgetting there was ever another side." The room behind him suddenly became huge, not 8 feet, endless. Rows of identical apartments, identical white doors, thousands. I slammed mine shut. I don't remember leaving, but I woke up in a motel 2 towns away. I never went back. Months later, I got my security deposit in the mail. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. No signature, just one sentence. "Storage room stays locked." I never believed in paranormal stories. Every creepy thing I'd experienced always had an explanation eventually. Old pipes, sleep deprivation, somebody messing around. That mindset stayed with me until something happened that I still can't fully explain, and honestly, I'm not even sure I want to. This happened 3 years ago when I moved into a small apartment outside the city. Nothing special about the place. Cheap rent, quiet neighborhood, old building. I lived alone and worked remotely, doing customer support, so most of my days were spent inside. The apartment had one thing I liked immediately: an extra room. The landlord called it a storage room, but it was big enough to fit a desk. No windows. Just a small empty room connected to the hallway by a thin wooden door. I figured I'd turn it into an office eventually. For the first month, I barely used it. Then one night, around 11 p.m., I was sitting in the living room watching videos while answering emails. I heard my name. Not loudly, just normal volume. Like someone standing in another room calling casually. "Daniel." I looked up. No TV dialogue. No phone. Notification. I muted everything. Silence. I sat there for another minute before laughing to myself. I figured my brain filled in random sounds. That happens. The next night, it happened again. This time I was brushing my teeth. "Daniel." I froze. The voice sounded close. Not behind me. Not outside. It sounded like it came from the empty room. I turned off the bathroom light and stood there listening. Nothing. I opened the storage room. Empty. No windows. No vents. Nothing unusual. I remember checking every corner even though I knew how ridiculous that was. I closed the door and forgot about it. For a while. But over the next week, it kept happening. Always once. Always when I was alone. Always from that room. Never urgent. Never threatening. Just my name. Sometimes male. Sometimes female. Once, I could have sworn it sounded exactly like me. That bothered me more than anything. I stopped opening the door. I started keeping headphones on. But after enough nights, curiosity got the better of me. I wanted proof. So, one Friday night, I set my phone to record audio and placed it inside the room. I shut the door, sat in the living room, waited. Nothing happened. Midnight passed. 1 a.m. Eventually, I forgot and went to bed. The next morning, I remembered the recording. 2 hours and 14 minutes. Mostly silence. I skipped through. Nothing. Then at around 1:17 a.m., I heard movement. Not footsteps. More like fabric shifting. Then silence. Then my own voice. Clear as day. "Daniel." I stopped. Rewound. Listened again. It sounded exactly like me. Not similar. Exactly. Then I heard another sound. My bedroom door opening. My breathing. Footsteps. The recording continued. Footsteps entering the room. Then silence. I checked the timestamp. At 1:17 a.m. I'd already been asleep. I knew because I checked my phone history. No activity. No reason to be awake. But on the recording, my voice spoke. Then apparently walked into the empty room. I sat there for 10 minutes trying to think logically. Maybe sleepwalking. Maybe audio corruption. That made the most sense. So that night I decided to test it. I placed my phone in the room again. Locked my bedroom door from inside. Put a chair under the handle. If I sleepwalked, I'd know. I slept badly. At some point I woke up. Dark room. Chair still against the door. Then I heard it. From the hallway. My own voice. Soft. Right outside. Daniel. I sat frozen. Then again. A little quieter. Daniel. I stared at the door. Chair hadn't moved. Nobody should have been outside. Then came a third time. Almost whispering. Right against the wood. Open the door. I didn't move. I stayed awake until sunrise. When daylight came, I checked. Chair untouched. Door locked. Hallway empty. The storage room door was open. I know I had closed it. Inside was my phone. Recording still running. I played the last part. Hours of silence. Then my bedroom door rattling. My breathing. And my voice saying, "He can hear us now." Nothing after that. I moved out the next week. I never listened again. Months later, while cleaning old files from my laptop, I found a backup folder from that apartment. Inside was a short audio clip. 7 seconds. No creation date. No memory of making it. It starts with silence. Then my voice says, "Don't answer when I call next time." I deleted it. I haven't heard my name from an empty room since. But sometimes, when I'm home alone, I catch myself almost answering before I remember. I never believed in ghosts. That's why what happened still bothers me. Years ago, I rented a cheap apartment above an old tailor shop. During the walkthrough, I asked the landlord, "Who lives upstairs?" He looked confused. "No one. There is no upstairs." I assumed he meant no attic apartment. The first week was normal. Then I started hearing footsteps. Slow pacing directly above me. Back and forth. At first, I ignored it. But I noticed something strange. The footsteps only happened when I was awake. One night, I decided to test it. 1:04 a.m. Step. Another. Another. I moved rooms. The footsteps followed, always directly above me. A week later, knock, knock, knock. I knocked back. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm. I texted the landlord. "Is someone above me?" His reply, "There is no upstairs." The next day, I checked every inch of the ceiling. Nothing. No hatch. No panel. Nothing. But every night, footsteps. Then the voice. Tuesday, 12:17 a.m. I was in bed scrolling my phone. The footsteps stopped directly overhead. 30 seconds of silence. I looked up. Quietly, I asked, "Who's there?" A muffled voice answered. Low. Distant. Like someone speaking through thick walls. I sat upright. The voice said, "You're awake." I searched the apartment. Nothing. The next morning, I called the landlord. He listened, looked at my ceiling, then asked, "Have you been sleeping okay?" That made me angry. I wasn't imagining this. That night, I stayed elsewhere. No footsteps. Next night back, 1:17 a.m. 3 knocks. Then, I started recording. The voice spoke again. "You forgot." I whispered. "Forgot what?" Long silence. Then, "You used to answer." Something about that sentence felt wrong. Not fear. Recognition. Like remembering part of a dream. And suddenly, I remembered. When I was around 9, I used to talk about someone upstairs. Not a neighbor. Someone above my room. I remembered my parents telling me to stop. I remembered crying because he got angry. I called my mother. I asked casually, "Did I ever talk about hearing someone upstairs?" Silence. Then, "Yes." I asked what I said. She answered, "You said he knew things." You told us the man upstairs finally told you his name. I swallowed. What was it? She stayed silent. Then, Daniel. I moved out the next morning. Months later, while unpacking old boxes, I found an old notebook. Crayon drawings. Random pages. Then one stopped me cold. My bedroom. And above it, another room. Inside stood a figure. Underneath, uneven handwriting. He only talks when I'm awake. And below that, smaller, almost erased, he looks like me.
Hi, it's me, Sarah. The story may be over, but some nightmares never truly end. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join us for more terrifying stories here on Horror After Dark. And remember, sometimes the things that scare us most aren't hiding in the dark. They're already inside the house. Good night, and sleep carefully.